a Canadian radio sanctuary podcast.
Chad, many of us know you around the greater Vancouver area as a musician that performs, and of course you were a founder of, Chad Allan and the Reflections and the Expressions, and of course the Guess Who. You've lived on the West Coast a number of years now, and aside from just performing, you have recently started a songwriting course.
It's very exciting, actually. I think it was back in 1982, a lovely, nice young lady by the name of Pearl Roberts approached me at Kwantlen in Surrey, and she had seen an article on me in one of the local Surrey papers here, and she called me up and asked me if I'd like to teach a music course, and we started talking about a songwriter's course, and actually I had identified a need. I felt there was a need, and I know there is, as far as aspiring songwriters out there, and amateur or professional or whatever, people that need a break in the biz, as it were. And it seemed to me that there were very few channels for the pop rock R&B writer musician per se. And so basically this is one of my contributions as far as kind of bridging that gap and trying to help the aspiring songwriter. And it started, I think it was October 1982, Inside a Song, which incidentally is the title of a tune that I wrote with a friend of mine, with Frank Sturck. And it started out as an 8-week course, which it is still, basically trying to help those people out there that need the help, John.
When you say help, what is the first step? Naturally, you want people who can play something, play an instrument, or do they have to be able to write music? What's the story there?
No, this is a very basic course. The original course was basic, and I'm branching out now into a more advanced course. But basically, they don't have to sing, they don't have to play an instrument. All it requires is a liking of music, of course, which they should have anyway if they're going to be songwriters. They don't have to play an instrument. As a matter of fact, at certain times it helps, of course, and you do write with an instrument. But believe it or not, sometimes writing with an instrument can tie you down to a certain extent. You can be limited by your instrument, the 6 strings on the guitar, or the 88 notes or whatever on the piano. No matter how beautiful and sweet the tones are, they can limit your sort of mental writing capabilities. So basically it's an asset to know how to play an instrument, but it's not essential. And I start the first 3 weeks of the 8-week course. I concentrate on the music end of it, and then I get into lyrics, then I get into marketing, copyrights, registrations with the performing rights organizations, and stuff like that. Although the sequence events could change, so it's a very comprehensive course, and I've been finding that there's not enough time. Really, there's never enough time really to teach a course like this. But it's as far as the basic course, that's the orientation. What inevitably happens, John, is that people seem to get afraid of the music theory. The visions of those weird books of theory and trying to sift through them. And I do deal with a little bit of music theory, but I try to make it as painless as possible, and to get onto other things.
Are you ever asked, for example, like what category of music? Do you just cover the song in general?
Yeah, I'm interested in the song, the popular song, in its pure form. And the way I'm teaching the course, or I'm trying to teach it, is that one can apply the knowledge that one gets from this course onto any style. And basically, since I'm into rock and roll, pop music, R&B, the orientation inevitably is within that area. So they're going to get kind of a pop orientation in a way, but I don't like to close any doors to any classifications, if you will. So it's for anyone writing any sort of song. And they don't even have to be writing songs per se, even if they're writing instrumentals and things like that. The music part of it will certainly help them.
Here's a song that Chad Allan wrote in the early 70s with Randy Bachman. It was done by Brave Belt, featuring vocals by Chad Allan. It's called Another Way Out.
Sleep, 'cause you have climbed your mountain, cry, 'cause you have lost your way. You found yourself another way out.
Not meaning to discredit a couple of well-known songwriters, at least when they were a team in the 60s and had a string of pop hits, 60s, early 70s. Burt Bacharach teaming with Hal David. Would that be considered one of the simplest types of songs to write, the simple pop song? Or are we fooled by the simplicity of its sound?
Well, I think we are fooled many times, John. Well, the Bacharach-David team wrote a lot of tunes, some simple and some not so simple. I don't think they're that simple. I think it is deceiving. There's an art, to getting your chords in and the melody line in, and yet trying to appeal to the average person. So when I think of that team, I don't think of simplicity per se. I think there's an orientation there. How can I say? But simplicity is the keynote, I think, at any time, really. But if it sounds, affected or difficult, then you're probably going the wrong way. For example, I can be writing a tune with 14,000 chords in it, and I may be, pleasing myself, but I have to think of the audience, basically. And I think, one of our jobs as songwriters is not so much, to get all the chords you can. Well, certainly not, to try and get as much as you can into the song, but to try and give people a lift, a certain positive lift. God knows there's, enough bad things going on in the world, and part of my job, as I see it, is to bring people up. How could I say? It's left up to me as to how involved I want to get with it. But if there's anything impeding, the message that I want to make, any obstacles, then I'll get rid of it, no matter how neat I think it is personally. Because there's several areas or people that you're trying to please, and the biggest market, of course, is the average person, quotation marks, on the street, the average record buyer, radio listener, and there's also musicians who are probably a little bit more difficult to please sometimes. And my being a musician, I have to put a rein on myself sometimes, I guess. That actually, I worry sometimes if I please myself with a song. Believe it or not, I get a little worried because I think, well, perhaps it's not going to please the mass audience. And I'm not trying to, pat myself on the back when I say that, but musicians do tend to get a little too involved and a little carried away with the nuances and the whole deal, and they tend to lose sight of what they're actually trying to do. Mm-hmm. And that holds for a lot of areas as well, books and stuff.
So when you're teaching your songwriting, I trust then, as you've just pointed out, it is more along the commercial lines, or what is commercial, or a commercial hook, all these type of things?
Yeah, we talk about hooks and commercialism, right? And incidentally, I don't consider it, selling out, writing a commercial tune. I don't see any valid reason why I can't, write my tunes and still make some money at it. That's my general orientation. But commercialism doesn't bother me. It seems to bother a lot of other people. When I was younger, I used to, be of the nature, well, if I'm going to make money from these songs, well, I don't want to do it, sort of thing. But I've changed my attitude, and I guess basically because I earn my living almost wholly, from music. So I've done some rethinking on that. How could I say? One of the biggest challenges for me is to write a 2.5, 3-minute simple commercial tune, and to have it played on the radio, etc. And the challenge is to sort of try to encapsulate in capsule form. It's almost like a mini movie, a mini drama to put into only so many words. And the average song has maybe less than 100 words probably. And so I think the commercial challenge is very great. I think if you look at it, on that positive level, there's nothing I enjoy more than writing a 30-second, 60-second commercial to get the point across. I don't know if I've answered your question, but
no, you have. I think that I'm not sure who said it. It might have been, perhaps it was Nick Lowe who said a few years ago that if you can't say it in 3 minutes, it's not worth saying. I think what he was meaning was that a good, strong song can say it in a short time. That's
right. There can be validity in a 7-minute song or a 10-minute song.
Yes.
Nothing against those kind of things. But I think a lot of it has to do with our instant society today, John, where people, instant, aspirins and instant relief and that. I think many people anyway, become more impatient and they want to, sock it to me. They want to be bopped on the head, and they want sort of instant information and what have you. And I think it's a problem, in our times in our culture, where many people anyway, just are too impatient, or they don't have the time, or they won't spend the time to sit there and actually listen. And very few people, I mean, they're hearing, but they're not actually listening, if you know what I mean. The birth of a 2.5, 3-minute song, I mean, it's great. I can't knock it. It's part of my living, but I think, a lot of people, need sort of that patience, aspect to be able to sit through a longer work. It can have just as much validity.
Mm-hmm.
But we're living, a lot of it is in the fast lane these days, and it's rather unfortunate. But on the other hand, as you say, if you can't say it in that time, then, you should be able to, perhaps you might want to revise your tune.